What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chaz Pearson, and this is the Outlet Forum with my esteemed co-host, Chris Camella. What up, Chris?
I want to trade the 46th pick for the 53rd pick for cash, for the 52nd, for the 60th, for the 59th, only to sign an undrafted player on a two-way contract. Thank you. I hope you guys got all that down.
Said the New York Knicks.
And the Lakers.
So, Chris, NBA draft is upon us. Winners and losers. AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson.
Yep.
Cameron Carr. LA Lakers.
Cameron Boozer.
Still of the draft. Yeah, Cameron Boozer. We will get into all of that tonight. Giannis traded officially to Miami. Who would have thought? I don't know. Maybe some guy on a podcast that's been screaming it from the mountaintop for the last 4 months, but nobody wanted to hear him. Austin Reaves, another one, screaming to the mountaintop. Oh, guys, 5 years, 241. Who would want to pay him that? Nobody. AR stays in LA. We'll get into that 4-year deal, 185. And Julius Randle traded to Brooklyn out of the New York. Like, the craziest thing about Julius Randle's situation is he gets traded out of the city that he was in. They win the championship and then gets traded to the same city, but to the wrong borough. So we'll get into all that as well. Trae Young gets a bag. Anthony Davis might be getting a bag. $70 million a year he might be eligible for.
Chicago had a nice draft, by the way. I just want to.
And what are the fucking Portland Trail Blazers doing?
Yeah.
Giving a lame duck 1-year deal coach a shot because you didn't want to keep Tiago Splitter. And Tiago Splitter did the right thing going to the Chicago Bulls, who have now made a series of great moves this all season.
No, I was just going to say somewhere Angels skipper Kurt Suzuki, also on a 1-year deal, is thinking to himself, Micah Nori, what a loser.
Micah.
No, the irony is Suzuki's on a 1-year deal with the Halos.
Exactly.
With no options, by the way, for 2027 or 2028.
With no options.
Yeah. So if Perry Manazian gets fired, the general manager of the Angels, he's probably gone with them, Suzuki. And by the way, Halos are 14 under 500 right now. 14 games under.
Which is about the same thing as they were 10 years ago and for the last 10 years straight or more. But we are not talking baseball tonight. We are talking solely and strictly NBA basketball. Chris, AJ DeBonsa, was he the guy that should have been number one, or was it Darren Peterson?
Honestly,
and why?
Yeah, so let me preface this by saying the Trae Young opt-out and then extension, I think told you, the timing of it told you exactly where Washington was going to go. This just seemed like the right pick. You have Anthony Davis, you have Alex Sarr, you have a really good front court if AD is healthy. To add a guy like AJ DeBonsa like that, not only is he one of the best players in the draft, but you actually have a spot for him in that three hole, which is, in that combo forward position. So it gives head coach Brian Keefe some flexibility with the lineup. You can go big with AD, Sarr, and DeBonsa. You could put DeBonsa next to AD. You could put Sarr next to DeBonsa, Sarr and AD together. So they've got a nice, interesting, weird, yet dynamic mix going in DC. You've got two former All-NBA players in Davis and Trae Young who have not been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. You have a good collection of young core players, Bubbs Carrington, Trey Johnson, Bilal Coulibaly. Now you add DeBonsa to that mix, and all of a sudden it's starting to make a little bit more sense to the point where DeBonsa won't have to come in and do any sort of heavy lifting. He could defer to some of those other veteran players early on. And as far as Darren Peterson goes, I think that was a good pickup for the Jazz. The problem, I think, Darren Peterson, I don't know if his game would have jived with Trae Young as much. I mean, I think it could have worked, but I think this is a better fit in Utah. Another good coach in Will Creedle. And the only issue I have with Peterson in Utah, which I think he could end up becoming what Donovan Mitchell was there, 6-7 years ago, is he going to be able to flourish in that two-guard position when you have Keontae George there as well as Ace Bailey. That's kind of the situation I'm a little bit curious of, with how does he slot in next to those guys? Does he come up off the bench? Does Utah maybe consider moving Bailey or Keontae George, especially if they're not going to pay George? That's the kind of question I have. But I definitely think he could ball out, and he's going to be box office with the Utah Jazz. And I honestly think Caleb Wilson, not to be confused with another Chicago star in Caleb Williams. I think him going to Chicago is the right fit because now he'll have the opportunity you can kind of build the team around him. Tiago Splitter, as you tweeted out, is a fantastic coach. And I think he's going to be in the right situation over there. It's going to take a few more years in Chicago compared to the other two, but I definitely like his game, and I think he's got a tremendous upside.
Darren Peterson is the guy. Darren Peterson. Here's the thing. Nothing against AJ DeBonson. He's going to be a perennial all-star. He's going to be a great player. I just think he's on a terrible team that's not going to make him look very good. Unless Trae Young and Anthony Davis play the way that they've played for the majority of their career. Then AJ DeBonson will be able to step in and look good. But I just don't have much hope for that team or that franchise as a whole. Let me just start there. Darren Peterson, for instance, with Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, and the rest of the crew, they have a far superior talented squad and a better head coach in Will Hardy, who I believe can bring it all together. So I just think that Darren Peterson, as the guy, he's going to be the guy on that team. Mm-hmm. And with the way that the NBA game is, for me, everybody makes a big deal out of his cramps and the injuries that he had, or the games that he missed and everything like that. It's very, very clear and obvious to me that this was potentially an out of high school guard, right? Yeah. Guards don't come out of high school and are successful like that. Even Allen Iverson went to Georgetown. So what I'm saying with Darren Peterson is he went because he had to go. Darren Peterson is talented enough to where he's going to be able to put up 25 points a game easy, playing for the Utah Jazz, in my opinion. So that is the number one best pick, I think, and situation overall. Caleb Wilson, I think, is a really good pick and situation for the Chicago Bulls. I like what he had to say about about having his own story. But AJ DeBonsa is the player that I think is absolutely amazing. I just think he went to a very, very bad team and a franchise that hasn't managed their top picks very well.
No, they haven't.
Even Bradley Beal and John Wall,
but okay,
teams weren't built around those guys for them to be successful. And I don't think Anthony Davis wants to stay in DC long term, even though he can be offered a 4-year. I think it's 4 years, $270 million.
Okay, so
for AD. So
here's where I agree with you on. You're right on those points. And the last two guys you should be relying on are Trae Young, who's got the reputation of being talented but selfish, and Anthony Davis, who's very injury prone. And AD may not be happy there, right? So he may be the guy that says, you know what? F this, I'm out. I want to play for a contender. However, AD also knows I have to rebuild my value, because if I want to go to a contender, I have to prove that I could stay healthy. So if you have guys who, even if their motives are selfish in Trae Young and Anthony Davis, they're going to be motivated nonetheless. And if you have those two guys playing at maybe not quite where they were like 5-6 years ago, right, where AD was a champion in 2020, led the Lakers along with LeBron to that championship. A year later, Trae Young leads the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not saying they have to get to that point. However, if they are healthy and those young guys are able to kind of, provide the right support behind them, all of a sudden now Washington can make some noise in the East. Maybe not a lot of noise, but some noise. But it's going to be based on their motivation, their health, and how quickly the young guys can supplement them with their own skill set and now start playing with more expectations, like Carrington, Trey Johnson, Coulibaly, Sarr, if he's able to stay healthy. Sarr was having a fantastic season up until that injury. And now you had a guy like Dabonsa to the mix. You're going to have something cooking there that maybe you didn't have intended, but all of a sudden now it starts to look good. However, in the grand scheme of things, yes, Peterson may be more NBA ready, a little bit more upside, and in a better overall environment with coaching, with the supporting cast and whatnot.
Yeah, ultimately it comes down to fit, right? For these rookies and these players that are getting their
Correct.
lives changed overnight
Yeah.
in the first and second round of the NBA draft. You're getting guys like Darren Peterson and AJ Debonsa and Caleb Wilson that are just going to come right into the NBA and be automatic producers. So then you have other guys that might be getting traded, other guys like LaMelo Ball who might go, that we're hearing might be Minnesota, might be the
Toronto
Raptors. There's a lot of different teams. So this is the best time of year when it comes to moves and things that are moving and shaking in the NBA. So I would really watch out because
for sure. And by the way, there were a couple of other winners in this draft, not just Utah and Washington. By the way, we forgot to mention Cam Boozer, the son of Carlos Boozer, a great NBA forward in his time, going to the Memphis Grizzlies, and now essentially maybe kickstarting a new era for the Grizzlies. We'll see what happens with John Morant. I know his name has not come up in anything. That's another guy, Chaz, may need to spend a year in purgatory in Memphis just to rebuild his image as well as show that he could stay healthy. So we'll see what that looks like there as well. But I thought one of the low-key winners, call me crazy, was the Oklahoma City Thunder. Adai Mera with the 12th pick. By the way, shout out to the Clippers. If you're an Oklahoma City fan, outstanding trade you made 7 years ago, which is the gift that still keeps on giving. I'm telling you, Lawrence Frank and C. Ballmer will never have to pay for a drink in Oklahoma City ever again. They get Adai Mera at 12, a 7'3" center who's coming off of a national championship with Michigan to go with Chet and potentially Hartenstein. Oh my God. And that other center that they got last year who didn't play, Thomas Sorber. They have got the Wemby stoppers, the Wemby brigade, all ready to go next year in OKC. And that kid Bennett Sturritz from Iowa, it seems pretty good too. So Oklahoma City, Sam Presti doing his thing. I thought they had a really good draft. We're going to get to Minnesota later, but they did really well also.
Yeah, they really did. I just for the draft, there's always guys that are coming in and out. I think the most impressive part was that the first 8 players of this draft were all freshmen. The one and done rule, is it working, Chris? I just want to, before we move on really quick, like I know we got other topics to get into, but like, what's your take on that? Is it working, or do you think that there are guys that can come into the league that, like this Darren Peterson thing, like could he have just been the consensus number 1 overall pick if they let him come out of high school?
Well, I mean, listen, colleges, we all know money makes the world go round, right? And college sports, especially, they don't want to be left in the dust, but I think the one and done rule was to be like, okay, let's at least give these universities a taste of this talent under the guise of, getting a year of development and coaching and fundamentals and everything like that, blah, 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 blah. You're right. There probably should be a rule now where, you should be able to come out of high school and go straight to the pros, and just allow that to sort it out, especially now where because in the NIL situation, we see guys from the pros starting to go back to college. I mean, that is the most insane thing to me. So I don't know if it's working. There's still this whole mess with the NIL. However, I think what they probably should do is lock these players in for at least 2 years, right? But you don't want to impede on the freedom of a player who, like a Cooper Flag, who, could make millions of dollars at the age of 19, then at the age of 20, because God forbid there's an injury or another problem. And now you potentially, your career is derailed before it even began. So I hear what you're saying, and you're probably right. But I'm just saying, like, there's millions of dollars at stake. And I think as long as these universities can prove that they're profiting from this, they're going to continue to do it. That's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Well, we spent enough time on the draft. Let's get into some real players, Big Chris, because the big fish has landed.
The freak heads to South Beach.
And here's the thing, man. Like, to me, I know it wasn't obvious to everybody else, but to me, it was obvious. Once New York was out of the picture, it was only Miami. Now, could Giannis have been traded anywhere else? Could he have gone to Boston? Could he have gone to Toronto? Could he have gone to?
I said Cleveland.
Cleveland. Like,
right.
I just didn't think that any of those other places were realistic. Not because they weren't good fits, because Giannis is too good of a player to go somewhere that he's not wanting to go. And with the time left that he had left on his contract and what he had done for the Milwaukee franchise and leading them to their first NBA championship in over 50 years, or in exactly 50 years, I think it was. So for me, it was always Miami because no state tax, quality team, great area, still on the East. There was always those things, and Pat Riley having that reputation of just doing what it takes to get a deal done and
to get a big star
at the highest level. So I did not think that. Now, once the Boston Celtics came into the play, and I'm thinking that they were going to get Jaylen Brown and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was going to be the best offer, but reportedly it was just 2 first-round picks. The Boston Celtics didn't really want to part with any of their young core, their young players that really have stepped up this season with Jaylen Brown, with Derek White.
I believe it was Gonzalez and Shireman. Yeah, and Shireman. Yeah, those were the 2 names that I had heard which is insane to me. I thought remember I said last week, I thought the sticking post would be a guy like Derek White. I thought that maybe if Milwaukee was trying to gouge him, maybe that would be a deal breaker. But I would have parted ways with those guys. But go ahead, finish your point.
I'll look at the Boston side of this. The Boston Celtics don't have a ton of depth in terms of guys that they really believe in at the top of their roster. So they didn't want to gut their entire team to be able to get Giannis. They wanted to offer somebody that was big enough with some draft capital to be able to get him, and it just wasn't enough. And I thought that the Milwaukee Bucks did the right thing for themselves in getting Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez, 3 first-round picks, including number 13 in this past draft. 2 seconds, a swap, plenty of assets to be able to say that you did well enough. Nobody else was going to offer you that. Milwaukee did the right thing in bringing somebody who's familiar to the city, with Tyler Hero being from there. Detroit sounded like they wanted to get their hands on Tyler Hero. They struck out on him. We'll get into Austin Reaves. Detroit wanted to step up and get Austin Reaves, was willing to trade Isaiah Stewart, who is now, Chris, he just got traded to the.
Who are you talking about?
Isaiah Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart just got traded to the Memphis Grizzlies for 3 future seconds. Yeah. So that's a salary dump for Detroit, which leads you to think, are they in the market for a secondary playmaker, or is this a move to potentially re-sign Jalen Duren, or both? That's really going to be the big question that will be figured out in the next few days. First of all, yes, you were right, but I was right too. And I said Milwaukee has to also do what's best for their organization in this deal. And I think, to be honest, they accomplished both. They put Giannis, they traded him to a position or to a team that he wanted to be at, which we said, I agreed with you. All I was doing last week was who's going to come in 3rd or 4th. It's Boston and Miami's race, but who else could be lurking? And I said Cleveland and Oklahoma City. But Oklahoma City clearly was not going to, in the market for doing anything that drastic. And I give you your props. You were right. Miami was the right point. However, here was the problem. Here was the problem with the Miami trade. Here is the problem here is the positive of what Milwaukee did. The problem with the trade is this was a huge move, but the corresponding moves are going to be just as critical, because as of now, you don't have a starting backcourt, basically. You have Davion Mitchell. We don't know what's going to happen with Andrew Wiggins. Norman Powell's an unrestricted free agent. Nikola Jovic, Simone Fontecchio. You got a lot of these randos that are there. The kid that won the dunk contest, Johnson. But there is like little to no depth. However, on the plus side, Pat Riley's done this before, right? He traded for Shaq. He gutted the roster. He was able to build the team around him and Dwayne Wade by getting complementary pieces to come here on a short-term deal. It led to a championship in 2006, right? Jay Will, Walker. Who else did they bring in? It was Jay Will, Walker, Shandon Anderson, James Posey, guys like that, right?
Right.
Yeah, Alonzo Mourning, they brought back Gary Payton and all of that. The Big Three era, the Heatles, they brought in James Jones, they brought in Mike Miller, they found Joel Anthony, Mario Chalmers, and everything like that. So if anyone could do it, it's Riley. And of course, with Andy Ellsberg and Alonzo Mourning and those guys being in the mix. So Pat Riley, once again, adds to his lineage of greatness within the Miami Heat organization of adding a big star. Bravo. But given the salary cap era, specifically the aprons, it becomes a little bit harder to fill out the roster as as you would want to best complement Bam and Giannis in 2026. So these next moves are going to be critical, to fill out the rest of the roster. And as we saw, Chaz, with the New York Knicks, what wins? Depth. What did Indiana have last year? Depth. You Boston the year before that, depth. Depth is in right now. Balance of a roster, having a bench, having a third scorer who doesn't necessarily need the ball all the time and can make an impact without necessarily scoring. So those next moves are going to be critical, and you mortgage the farm a little bit. So you're on the clock, Pat Riley, to put together this roster so you can compete with the Detroits, the Bostons, the New Yorks, Indiana back in the mix next year, and other teams that are also going to be on the rise. Why Milwaukee went with Miami over Boston? Two reasons, I thought. One, if you would have traded for Jaylen Brown, you're right back in the same scenario as you were with Giannis, essentially, except with maybe a slightly less talented player, right? So that was one of the big issues where if we bring in Jaylen Brown, now we have to try to build this team around Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown is not going to want to just, wait for us to gain assets. And that brings me to the point too of why this was a great deal for Milwaukee. It allowed them to restock with legitimate assets, not just the picks. Yes, the number 13 pick was great. The swap moving forward, the 2 unprotected first in 31 and 33. The second rounder, great. But Khalil Ware is tradable. Jaime Jaquez is tradable. Tyler Hero is tradable. So you're in an ideal situation where you could build with some of these guys or potentially trade them and get other assets down the road. So this allowed you to restock everything that you had lost through the years going after, championship caliber players in order to keep Giannis happy and to go for it. The Dame situation, the Drew Holiday situation, signing Miles Turner. This allowed you to basically wipe the slate clean. And I think John Horst and Jimmy Haslam and the entire Milwaukee front office and ownership did a fantastic job. And they may have gouged a little bit, a la David Griffin gouging Pelinka in 2019 with the Anthony Davis deal. I think the only difference is I think Milwaukee may be a little bit quicker to being a playoff team than maybe that New Orleans team was, but time will tell. Anyway, just my thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on anything I just said?
My only thing about the Milwaukee Miami trade is that Miami's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
They're going to lose. Yeah. To me, they're going to lose 2 big guys in Norman Powell and Andrew Wiggins. They're going to lose both those guys. I don't think that they may keep one of them, but I do think it would be smarter for them to trade Andrew Wiggins and get more assets to fill out the roster. I don't think that I would love for the Lakers to get Andrew Wiggins, but I don't think the Lakers have the assets that would fit into Milwaukee. I'm sorry, into Miami's chest of assets to be able to fill out the roster the way that they probably want to. Correct. So
yeah, that's my concern too.
I do think that the Heat have, quite a bit of moves that they still have to make. Can they contend as is? Absolutely. I'm just going to tell that based on what the Miami, if Bam and Tyler Hero were able to compete and score 120 points a game, their problem wasn't offense, it was defense. Like they would give up 120, 130 as well. So Giannis is going to help with that and just creating the winning type of culture. Ironically, that Heat culture already has, but they've been losing. So they need a new culture, and that's why they're bringing in a big fish like Giannis. So,
and can you convince Norman Powell to take less to stay there? I don't think that's fair to him because Norman may not cash out again after this season that he just had.
So let me just say this, Chris.
Yeah.
I personally, this is just my personal thoughts. I don't know who Detroit is targeting, but we'll get into this with Austin Reaves because Detroit missed out on Austin because the Lakers decided to step up because they got word that Detroit was trying to maneuver, and clearly they were right. They had to trade Isaiah Stewart in order to bring somebody in. That trade just got done for 3 second rounders, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
I think a great fit, and the person that Detroit might be targeting is Norman Powell, because Norman Powell
maybe
would fit seamlessly, especially as a scoring guard on the perimeter with Cade Cunningham and the depth that they already have on the wings with Tobias Harris as well at the 3 that can split time at the 4.
I think what they want,
you have Jalen Duren and everything like that as well. So we'll see.
I want to compliment your point. And correct me if I'm wrong. Detroit wants a star who isn't necessarily a star, who could play like a star.
Right.
Do I have that right?
Yeah. I'm sure they'd love to get a star. Austin Reaves is a star. Maybe he's not an all-star and would have been had he not gotten injured. But I mean, Austin Reaves is anybody making $40+ million a year. Is a star, regardless of what you get. But you know what? Like the Giannis trade goes without saying. There's not really much to talk about with it because Miami still has to do other moves and fill out the roster. It's kind of crazy. I do want to say that the point of Jimmy Haslam trading Myles Garrett and Giannis, 2 teams on teams that he owns within 3 weeks of each other, is absolutely crazy.
Resets.
I don't know if that is crazier than the Dallas Mavericks and the Dallas Cowboys trading Luka and Micah Parsons within, what was it, 6 months of each other. I think it was.
And also too, Miami, it's not the whole roster, Chaz. The front court is obviously set. You have Bam and Giannis, you have Bobby Portis too, who we forgot to mention. That's an excellent 6-man. I think he won 6-man or was a finalist for 6-man and a former champion. He was a big part of that 21 Bucks team. The front court is fine. We're talking wings and guards. And this is where you're going to have to get creative. So here's a couple of ideas. One, bring in Giannis's former running mate in Milwaukee, Chris Middleton. He showed that he could stay healthy this past year, looked all right in Washington, looked all right with the Dallas Mavs. That could be a guy willing to come in for less money to play with Giannis and to compete for another championship. 2, maybe consider trading Nikola Jovic, who's more of like a 4-5 combo. I think now with Portis there, he becomes expendable, and maybe you could land yourself a guard and or a wing for him. Right. And then 3, try to do the same thing with Andrew Wiggins. I would even consider calling Masai Ujiri and seeing if you could flip Andrew Wiggins to the Dallas Mavs and seeing if you could land, I don't know, maybe like a Klay Thompson type, to put into your backcourt next to Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, it's pretty clear and obvious that the Dallas Mavericks are going with their youth movement, all of their veteran guys. Like, the one player, and let's just get into it, Chris, because everything is just linking to the Lakers.
Always does, right?
It always does. I see the world, this NBA world, in purple and gold goggles. Austin Reaves, I think this was the smartest thing. And I don't think Rob Pelinka gets enough credit, Chris. I just don't. Everybody wants to shit on Rob Pelinka for, not making certain moves. But like in this new apron era, the first and second apron, which is technically a hard cap because it restricts you so much, right? you have to make moves 2-3 moves ahead. And signing a guy like AR for only $6 to $7 million more than any other team could even offer over a 4-year period is a smart thing to do, especially if you don't have to offer that 5th year. So I never took it serious that the reports where Austin Reaves was going to ask for 5 years, $241 million. He should. He's eligible. You should always ask for what you're eligible for.
Sure.
Do you get it or not is another question. But
I never thought Austin would be super greedy either.
I mean, I didn't think so either. But the fact that he gets to stay in LA, he's going to make an average of $46 million a year, 41, 44, 47, and then 51 in that final year,
deal. Yeah.
which is a player option for
right.
Like if Austin Reaves is opting out of that final year of his deal
at age 32, I believe.
31, or I think he'll be
32.
31 or 32. Either way,
yeah,
you can still get another 4-year max deal at that point if you play at a max level for the last 3 years leading up to that. So I'm just,
you can get one more good payday out of that.
If Austin Reaves opts out of that $51 million player option, then that means things have gone great.
Yeah,
for not only him but also the Lakers and anybody else that's probably on the team as well. So I think that it really comes down to the number that they decided to get him at. I don't think it's going to come down to just straight salary. I think there's going to be a lot of incentive in his contract.
Yeah,
as well when all the details come out.
Sure,
maybe not. I could be wrong.
I mean, for all-star performances, games played, all NBA teams made, things like that. I mean, those are the things they never talk about. We only talk about the numbers. You know, maybe there are a few incentives or whatnot, but you never get all of the nooks and crannies and everything like that because, Chaz, those details aren't important. The question is, where is he signing and for how much and for how many years? You know what I mean? And how many of those years are guaranteed? I think this was a solid move, which I was a little confused at first because all we were hearing was 5 for 241, 5 for 241. When you also think about it, he's making less money than a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who just shat the bed in the NBA Finals for the San Antonio Spurs and actually had a so-so playoff run altogether when you really break it down. So I thought this was one of the first big pieces that the Lakers needed to handle, and they handled it. This was clearly somebody that Luka Doncic has developed a chemistry with on and off the court. And yes, there going to be concerns with the defense of the backcourt? Absolutely. Which, once again, brings me to my next point. These next moves that you make are going to be just as imperative as this one. This is a big move, no question about it. Cross it off the list. But now, addressing the bench, addressing the center position, addressing the wing position, those are all going to be crucial. But with Austin Reaves, just like we said with Detroit, right? They have a star in Cade Cunningham. What we want is a true number 2, a guy who could play like a star without necessarily the star ego. And that is Austin Reaves next to Luka Doncic. Now, we still don't know what the LeBron scenario is. We haven't heard from LeBron. We know he's golfing. He got together with his Cavs teammates, the 10-year anniversary of the 2016 championship team that beat the 73-win Warriors. Okay, great. We don't know what he's up to. And if he's going to come back to the Lakers or retire or go somewhere else, that will play itself out in the coming weeks. But if nothing else, Chaz, this is a huge move for the Lakers. That backcourt over the next at least 3 years is going to be set. So in a league that requires talent, you have that secure for now.
The cool part about it is that Austin Reaves' cap hold is $20 million, and you can go over the cap, obviously, to re-sign your own players. So they're not going to sign this deal and execute it until free agency is pretty much done. It's going to be the last thing that they do because there's no rush for it. So you've already agreed to it. You can kind of let the paperwork sit there. And now this doesn't affect the Lakers' $50 million that they have to spend. So I think this is huge because if you can agree,
because they have Austin's bird rights. That's right.
You have Austin bird rights, but also it allows you to maneuver. So now you can figure out what to do with Rui. Now you can figure out what to do with Marcus Smart, 2 guys that you definitely want to hold on to.
Sure.
Luke Kennard might be the odd man out.
That'd be
that's a
tough.
guy you want to hold on to. But obviously, you're going to have other offers. You're going to be, lower on the totem pole list because guess what? Even after Rui and Marcus Smart, before them, LeBron James is actually a name that you want to negotiate with to find out what the number is. But I
So
do
you know
think
how
that,
much you have left to go fill out the rest of this roster and address the needs.
yeah, I mean, Rich Paul isn't going to say there's 12 teams interested in LeBron if LeBron is really thinking about retiring. So he is coming back, and it's all really just a leverage play, right? You have to make sure that you drum up interest for your client, whether your client has interest or not. You have to drum that up. So I do think that LeBron James is going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what the number is. If the number is higher than $25 million a year, sorry, like we can't win with you making more than $25 million a year, given that we still need to have a player on the perimeter to be a long range defender. So
Yeah,
even more important than the long range defender on the wing is a big guy and upgrading a starter, right? Which leads me to a guy like Daniel Gafford, who's a veteran on the Mavericks.
2 years left on his contract.
Correct. Who's going with the youth movement. I would love to see Daniel Gafford in a Laker uniform. And he could be the backup. I really would like for them to go after Walker Kessler. Obviously, he's a restricted free agent, right? And Utah can match. But because you already got Austin Reaves locked up, LeBron might be willing to wait to figure out what his number is if you know that you got a shot at Walker Kessler,
Yeah.
Which is also a player who hasn't been, proven. We know he's a good player, but we don't know if he's playoff proven as well. And last point that I want to make.
And he's been hurt a lot too the last few years, but go ahead. Yeah.
Last point I want to make.
Yeah.
Rob Pelinka better have something up his sleeve better than Nick Claxton, because Nick Claxton got absorbed in a salary dump
in the Chicago,
right?
Yeah.
By Chicago, by way of Minnesota sending Julius Randle to Brooklyn. So the Lakers could have been one of that team to absorb that contract because they had enough space. I'm very interested to see what else happens and what big men they get. They're going to get a big man. It's just a matter of what quality, how high, what's the number, and so on. So
yeah,
you kind of have to wait and see with that.
For sure. And obviously you have to figure out what Ayton is going to do first. Ayton and Smart have player options for the 2026, 2027 season. So you need to figure out what that looks like, as well, as far as, are they going to opt out, test their, take whatever. Well, Marcus Smart obviously had more value built up than DeAndre Ayton. And he could likely, go to a team, I don't know, like Detroit, who could use, a veteran presence off their bench and the leadership and everything like that. He can go somewhere else too. I'm not sure what his market is going to look like, but I'm sure a team would love to have somebody like that on their roster. Ayton, on the other hand, I think at this point he is what he is. He can start in the NBA, but I just think the inconsistency, the attitude, the passive-aggressive nature sometimes really rubs people the wrong way. And I think you're right. The Lakers do need to upgrade that position. I just don't necessarily know what that looks like. Gafford is a great idea. The question is, Chaz, like you were saying, you prefer him as a backup. I prefer him as a backup. Dallas preferred him as a backup. He backed up, Derek Lively II during that 2024 finals run that the Mavs had with Luka and Kyrie leading the charge. So, are you convinced that Walker Kessler is the guy? Because to me, there's not a lot of other great options as far as free agency goes. There's options with trade. Gafford, another guy we haven't talked about is Miles Turner. Does Milwaukee now decide to get up off of that contract? And those are 3 expensive years you would have to dump at Miles Turner. So
I think the Lakers go with somebody who plays closer to the rim than Miles Turner. That's why Daniel Gafford is.
Yeah, that's
Daniel Gafford is absolutely perfect. Not by the way he plays offensively, the way he plays defensively, and the fact that he already has experience with Luka playing at the highest level. They went to the finals together,
Another name, right, and just to throw another name out there, because obviously the Lakers have been linked to the Pelicans, but it's not just Jones and Murphy that they're looking at. They're apparently also looking at this kid, Messi or Messi, who's, I mean, Pelicans, they could be trying to offload a lot of a lot of talent. So keep an eye on that as well. So yes, as long as they address the front court situation with not one, but two significant big men. And then I would say have Jackson Hayes as like a backup plan. Although Hayes, given his connection to Luka and the chemistry that they've developed over the last year and a half, I think more than likely he's back. I think the question I have is if you strike out with Kessler, Chaz, and you end up getting Daniel Gafford, right? And by the way, Gafford may not be an easy get because guess who's running the freaking Dallas Mavericks now? Masai Ujiri. And we all know how he loves to deal with the Lakers, right? So assuming you get Gafford and Hayes, that's not a bad center position. I just also wonder at that point, do you bring back Rui regardless, or do you try to get a more defensive-minded power forward to slide in between LeBron and a potential Daniel Gafford, assuming LeBron comes back? Well, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And if so, who does that look like if it's not Rui, in your opinion?
It is Rui because he shot the best percentage of anybody at that position for the amount of times that he shot. Like you gotta keep Rui, you gotta keep LeBron. Like you giving this money to Austin Reaves. You have to keep LeBron. And
it just almost feels like we're gonna end up running it back with this squad. That's the feeling I get. Yeah,
they are. They are, but they're going to make a very key trade or two, I think. You got to consolidate the Vando Dalton Connect. Like
Chaz, you're going to die on that March Hill, aren't you? The 16-2 run as a foreshadowing of what all of next season is going to look like. You said it yourself last week. I asked you, was the Laker team that we saw in March with everybody healthy? Granted, yes, still some holes in the roster and everything like that, but LeBron is the third option. Was that just a flash in the pan, or a sign of things to come if they run it back and they're healthy? And you said
a sign of things to come. But mainly not for the rest of the team. It's those three guys. So somebody like Jackson Hayes, like DeAndre Ayton is not going to be on the squad. I'm just telling you, he's going to opt in and the Lakers will trade him. Maybe they're waiting to trade DeAndre Ayton for Daniel Gafford. Who knows? We don't know that exactly. But I do think that the Lakers are going to make two key trades, whether it's a consolidation of the end of their bench for more flexibility and a better veteran level player. The Lakers could get somebody like Norman Powell. Will they have enough space? I don't think so. But I'm just saying, like there are players that are linked to certain teams for a reason, and we'll see what comes of it. But I do think that they're going to make two moves that are going to address the wing defender role, which was like the KCP role, right? A player that can shoot and play defense, that's a veteran. I do think that, Andrew Wiggins is a player that they want to target, but there are others as well. And then obviously the center position. I think in the order of it, they're going to go center first. They're going to address the big man option first, then the wing, and then come back to LeBron with whatever's left. And hopefully he takes it, because you probably want to see this roster fill out before you commit to whatever is on it, right? So let us go ahead and figure out what we're going to do with the roster, and we'll just be in touch, and we'll keep you abreast of any moves that are done. And
getting value. I will tell you the X factor this offseason. Potentially getting value for Vando and Connect is going to be imperative. You have to not only get a piece, but a piece that fits what the Lakers are doing and fulfills a need. So if you can flip those two guys, like you were saying, for, a 3-and-D wing, a Wiggins, maybe, who else did you say? Maybe an Andrew Wiggins, KCP, right? I believe he has an option.
I'm just saying, contract. Like that KCP that would not player.
Yes. Okay, great. A 3-and-D wing. That's exactly what KCP is. And this would be his third stint with the Lakers. He was injury riddled last year. The time with Orlando was not very good. I wonder if it was just a bad fit or the fact that he's getting older. That's another thing you have to factor in. However, even if you could like offload those guys, Chaz, to get a Cam Johnson type, I would be totally fine with that. I don't know if Denver's going to do that. I really don't know what Denver's up to, but that would be somebody like that. A 3-and-D wing who's coming off of a so-so season, who may have, the last few years been a little but taking a chance on somebody like that fulfills a need, right? Another name to throw out there, more on the free agency side, Kelly Oubre Jr. I don't know if Philadelphia is going to bring him back. That's the kind of guy that you may need to get creative in signing as well. So I'm just saying, these are just some options to look at, So we'll see what happens, but getting value for those two guys without having to attach any additional assets to them is going to be critical for the Lakers. And then also, too, how much of an impact can Adu Thiero and the newest rookie Cameron Carr, the son of Chris Carr, a former NBA player, finished as the runner-up in the 97 dunk contest next to Kobe. How much do you think they can make an immediate impact for next season?
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's not even at free agency yet, guys. Technically, this is the night of night 2 of the draft. I know we already mentioned it, but Julius Randle was traded to Brooklyn in a salary dump move, so Minnesota can go after
somebody.
KD.
Well, also too, and I also think they use that money to sign Ayu Dosunmu, 5 years, $112 million.
That too, but also LaMelo Ball. Like they
clearly want to address the point guard situation.
Minnesota's going to do something, so we'll see.
And no Dante next year, so Dosunmu could start or come up off the bench. Sorry to interrupt. I just think that's important. I forgot about that. No Dante next year. Dosunmu could start, but I think they want to keep him in that 6-man role, and then, like you were saying, go after a point guard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just concerned with if there's any more salary dumps. Are there players that the Lakers can just be able to get because of these and just absorb into their cap space because they have 50 million of it? So they aren't the only one with cap space, but the Brooklyn Nets have less, Chicago Bulls have less because of the moves that they made reportedly in the last few days. Julius Randle, man,
3 years, $100 million. They signed him to that extension last summer, and he was such a big part of that run to the conference finals. And a year later, he's gone.
I'll just say I'm just disappointed in him because of the way that he acted with the franchise on the way out. And he's a Kobe disciple, So
he is, but I mean, Julius is what he is. Listen, you didn't like that move from the beginning, them offloading Cat to get Randall, and it looked like both teams benefited. Obviously now it looks like the Knicks benefited more because they won a championship in Towns' second year, whereas Randall, they lost in the second round to the San Antonio Spurs.
I don't recall. Did we? I knew that the winner of that trade was the New York Knicks.
But I made the argument that Randall ended up being a better fit because he had a better performance throughout the playoff run. However, the problem with Julius Randle, 12 years in, he's still sort of the same player. And as physical as he is, the fact that he's undersized, there are just certain matchups where he just gets played off the floor. We saw it in the 2025 conference finals. He got played off the floor by a long, athletic, agile Oklahoma City Thunder squad. And this year it was played off because he couldn't really defend anyone for San Antonio. He's too small for Wemby. He's not quick enough for some of the wings and guards and the smaller lineup that Mitch Johnson was playing with the Spurs. So there are just certain matchups that seem to suit him. The reason why he was able to run riff shot on the Lakers in 2025 is because the Lakers had no front court. There was no one there to defend him. 41-year-old LeBron could not sustain the physicality. The problem with Randall is just the physical lack of just his physical limitations. Not his fault, but I think Tim Conley in Minnesota probably said, you know what? Rather than being hamstrung by this, let's shop that contract. Let's get ourselves some salary cap relief, and we could put Naz Reid in the starting lineup. We could keep Ayo Dosunmu, and then we can get either a starting point guard or another dynamic scorer at the wing to pair with Anthony Edwards and maybe take a little pressure off of him. Either way, it takes pressure off of him. And they've needed
either way.
Either way. Yeah. But either way, though, what do you think is more of a need for them, point guard or another wing scorer?
For the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah.
Point guard.
Yeah, I agree.
point guard.
They haven't really had a good one in a long
They,
time.
they need, Mike Conley was a great one, but he
He
just
was,
fell.
but he was at the back nine of his career, Chaz. Like I knew that was a matter of time. Mike Conley's a good mentor. He's meant a lot, I'm sure, to that organization. Good locker room guy. I love the leadership that he brings. Dante and Desunmu, I think, are better super subs. They fall more in line of the Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford. Obviously, not the same kind of players, but Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, Ginobili, like Jason Terry. These were guys that were better suited coming up off the bench, right? And I think they would like to get themselves a true starting point guard who could not only score, but make plays and take pressure off of Ant-Man. So he doesn't have to, worry about scoring, defending, playmaking, and just have all of that on his shoulders. So yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. And I think they like having Rudy with Nas or another power forward and Jaden McDaniels. I think they like having that big lineup in there. You know what I mean? Rather than going
Yeah.
small throughout the game. So yeah, I think it's going to be point guard. I just don't know if LaMelo's the right guy, personality wise and skill set next to Ant-Man. I'm not sure.
Probably not, but that remains to be seen because it's just a rumor. We'll see if it actually happens and if it goes down. So, man, I'm just excited. This is the best time of year. Brace yourselves. We're 6 days away from free agency, but really, because of these aprons, free agency isn't free agency anymore because guys get traded
Sure.
and guys opt in and moves get done before you hit free agency because that's just the smart thing to do given the cap space position that you're in. Like for the Lakers, they did it the right way. They didn't even let it get to free agency for Austin to allow him to opt out, talk to other teams and see like we're just going to offer you more than what any other team can offer you, but it's less than what the max is for us because we have your bird right. So I just think that was a really smart way to operate, and other teams are doing the same thing as well.
Two quick
Chris,
questions. Can I ask you two quick questions before
Yeah.
we get on out of here? Just quick responses. What did you think of Dusty May being hired by the Dallas Mavericks? And who do you think ended up having the best draft?
The Utah Jazz had the best draft because they got the best player in the draft and the best fit.
Okay.
Darren Peterson is going to be a 10-time All-Star. And these questions about his durability and commitment to the game and all that other stuff because he was asking out of certain games in college, the guy just clearly didn't want to be in college and wanted to just make it to the league and didn't want to get hurt. And said, fuck NIL money. I'm trying to get the actual bag, which he got.
Sure.
Because number 2 pick guaranteed money is a bigger bag than he'll ever see in college for 4 straight years. So for him, I think it's Darren Peterson, hands down. AJ DeBonsa is right there as well. I'm really big on the Cameron Carr move for the Lakers, and other really good players and moves as well. But Darren Peterson. What was the other question you said?
Dusty May to the Mavs.
I didn't like it really. I would have seen there were some other coaches I would have liked to see get that opportunity before college coach, but I do understand, it's all about, jobs are about relationships and who sometimes what but also who and who's connected to who. And this is Dusty May has actually been linked to other jobs in the past. And there were and I forgot what the other team was, but there was another team that was thinking about I heard it was rumored that John Shire.
Yeah. No, it was Dallas.
Was
Dallas was also in on
it was
John
Dallas
Shire.
as well.
It was Dallas as well. They were in on Shire and Dusty May, and I think they were also in on Sean Sweeney, who took the Mitch Johnson's associate head coach from the Spurs, who took the Orlando Magic job. Best of luck to him there. I think it's unique. I really thought Masai was but Masai is always kind of, when you look at the hires that he had, even in Toronto, he took a chance on Nick Nurse. He took a chance on Dwayne Casey. He allowed these guys to go in there and flourish. I mean, when Dwayne was a career assistant, when Nick Nurse was a G League coach, so I'm not surprised he went this route. I think it's a bit extreme. going from Jason Kidd, who was a really solid, established head coach and a former champion as an assistant with the Lakers, to now going to a reigning national champion. And we have not seen, and the thing about it is, have we seen a lot of college coaches make that jump and be successful right away? Not really. That's the thing. I'm trying to think of who was the last one to really come in and make an immediate impact. I mean, hell, that would have been my concern had the Lakers hired Dan Hurley over, let's say, JJ Redick. And obviously I had my concerns with JJ, but at least JJ had pro experience as a player. Dusty does not have that. John Shire does not have that. So that's really going to be the concern that I have. And, you can only hope that Masai urges him to build a very strong assistant coaching staff around him, like JJ Redick did with Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks and Bob Breyer and those guys. So, which I'm sure Dusty will do, but it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that works out. So, yeah, I mean, it's unique, it's different, and maybe he was thinking, why not take a chance and see how this works out? But awfully risky, and I'm not sure if Masai had to be that risky in order to do it. I don't know. Just my opinion. Maybe Dusty will make me look like a fool.
We'll see. We'll see, brother. Well, I know you had a couple shout outs that you wanted to get to before we head on out. What you got for us, dog?
For sure. Unfortunately, we had a few more passings. One we didn't talk about last week, Aldon Smith, the former very talented San Francisco 49ers. I believe he was a linebacker. He was part of that great defense. I think he was on that Niners team that made it to the Super Bowl with Kaepernick and lost to the Ravens. Passes away. He was young, 36 years old. I know he had some personal issues as well. And, they think that it could be CTE. So, it's just a shame, man, when a lot of these football players end up going young like that. It's terrible. And of course, the legendary music producer, controversial. I'm sure there will be more documentaries on Netflix about him. Clive Davis, though, the one thing you can't deny, like him, hate him, he built careers. We may never hear of a Whitney Houston or a Bruce Springsteen, among many others, had it not been Aretha Franklin, had it not been for the great Clive Davis, passed away at 94. So just wanted to give those guys a shout out. Chaz, any remarks on those?
When I think of Clive Davis, I think about the Grammy party at the Beverly Wilshire. So, I'm sorry, Beverly Hilton Hotel. It's just a place that I always thought about, in that party that he threw every year. I know there's plenty more to him, but for some reason, that's just the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Clive Davis. Obviously, Whitney Houston, and just what he was able to build, with his record empire. So, man, just shout out to Clive Davis. I don't know why it's as controversial. Everybody has an opinion about stuff, but
I think it's the Diddy aspect of it, that came to light, with the whole Diddy situation and everything like that. And, did he steal? Did he exploit some of these musical artists? But you know what? Let me just say this, Chaz, and I want you to respond to this. In this field of entertainment, sports, millions of dollars at stake, publicity, fame, all of that, of course, there's a natural aspect of exploitation. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not defending it. I don't think anyone should have to go through any of that stuff. And if they are, doing things to people, they deserve to get punished and all of that. However, this is the price you pay for that life sometimes. Unfortunately, Clive Davis was a gatekeeper in that musical business, and I'm sure there was some shadiness, but that's unfortunately part of the game, and that's what makes that machine run. You want all these great things. Unfortunately, Denzel's got a great line. I always quote it in The Equalizer: "When you pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud too."
That part,
yeah.
So
anyways,
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. Great show. Good stuff talking about the draft, these moves, the Giannis trade that I saw coming from miles and miles away to the Miami Heat. It's like,
Chaz,
where the fuck else is he gonna go? Honestly,
Chastradamus,
man. Anyways, we will see you guys next week. By this time next week, we will be at on the eve of free agency.
Right around there.
I think we will actually
July 1st will be our
our next show will be a free agency show. So
Yeah.
hopefully by then we'll get some moves and we'll know
Trades.
if LeBron James is still a Laker. I don't know. We'll see. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot will happen between now and our next show. So be prepared for a heavily filled rundown, and we will be here to give you all of the info as best as possible as we can. Chris, where can they follow you, my man?
It says right there at Chris_Camelo. That's my X handle. See Camelo1 on Instagram. Be sure to follow all of our content on the Outlet Forum. That's at the Outlet Forum, YouTube, X, Instagram. Partner, great stuff. The draft is come and gone. We're well in the full swing of World Cup. The group stage coming to an end. Mexico with an impressive win tonight, 3-0. You got U.S. tomorrow. Also,
with nothing to play for. With nothing to play for, 3.
Or I'm sorry, they won 2-0, but or was it 3? No, it was 3-0. It was they got to go late. Yeah, so we'll see what U.S. looks like against Turkey. A lot still to be sorted out in the group stage. So yeah, 6 more games tomorrow, man. Yeah, it's and by the way, real quick before we go, shout out to Ghana, a scoreless tie against England. They held their own against one of the best in the world. In England. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. Ghana was a force in that game. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out because you know what? I like how some of these underdog teams play. Cape Verde's look good throughout the tournament. Japan has looked really solid. So you got to give credit where some of it's due. I'm not saying these teams are going to win it, but I'm saying it's good to see them playing well.
The World Cup is top 3 sporting events of all time. I think it's probably the Super Bowl, the World Cup, and the Olympics.
I'd say so. Yeah. I wouldn't sleep on as far as the madness of everything. I wouldn't sleep on the NCAA tournament.
I'm just no fucking way.
No March Madness.
Fucking college kids, get the fuck out of here.
Clearly, Chaez has money if he's doing that.
We're not even talking to we're not even talking the top of the profession.
I got you.
No, get March Madness. Olympics.
Yeah.
World Cup.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. Not even.
Would you say October MLB playoffs as honorable mention? Wow.
Not even close. I would say WBC before I'd say World Series.
Okay. So you're I think you're a little bit more biased toward international, but okay. That's fine.
I mean, it's the world stage. When you're, it's a little different when you're representing a country as opposed to a team or a city. Now, the Super Bowl is different because it represents not only a team or a city, but it represents America, and it's the biggest event that a country can have, like a single country. There's not a single event that's in another country that's based out of another country that the world watches like the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And nobody obviously watches the Olympics and the World Cup like other
Fair enough. I got you. Okay.
Didn't have that on our rundown, but on the way out, we appreciate you guys. We will talk to you guys next week. Thanks for sticking around. We'll see ya. Peace.